Alright guys and gals, we are going to talk about how to trim your pot today. First thing you're going to need to know, you do not need a bat on your wheel to trim. Your wheel has circles that you can use to line your pot up so it's a little more in center when you first start. This kind of helps you out a little bit. You're going to need 3 little pieces of clay. We call these lugs. So if you take, you know, a golf ball sized piece of clay, roll them in a ball and kind of roll them out. They're like little sausages. One goes at 12 o'clock. If you're looking on a clock, one goes at 4 o'clock and one goes at 8 o'clock. How do you know if your pot is ready to trim? It should be stiff and leather hard. Down at the bottom you can see it's a little bit more of a lighter gray. That means it's getting close to bone dry. You cannot trim your pots when they're bone dry, so you want to catch them when they're leather hard. So they're still stiff, there's moisture that's evaporating, but you can still carve into them. The next step in trimming your pot is to center it upside down. So if I start my wheel slowly and take my needle tool and hold it at about 4 o'clock. Oh, my scale's so good. It's in center right away. I'll give you an example. If I put my pot on here, and you can see my needle touches some, so it touches from here to here, but not all the way around. So wherever the needle touches, it's too far that direction, so you want to push it just a little bit opposite of where the needle touches. So I'm going to shimmy it just a little bit in that direction, and then I'm going to push down my lugs because I've moved the pot. Check it again, touching from here to here. So where's that center? Right here. I'm going to push it away from where the needle touches. Eventually, your needle will touch all the way around. And that means that the pot is in center upside down. Once you have your pot in center upside down, be sure to tighten your lugs so that your pot does not move. Next, we need a Snoopy tool. They can be found by the sink. This is what we call the Snoopy tool. You see it all right? There we go. Call it a Snoopy because here's the nose and here's the head. I use just the back part of the Snoopy tool. So I'm going to start my wheel a little bit slower. And I like to start my wheel and then put my foot on the floor. I'm going to use that top part of Snoopy. I always keep my, it's kind of like it's my left hand. It's not my throwing hand, but I keep my finger on the top to make sure it doesn't pop up. And I'm going to curve and round this out. I'm going to go a little faster. So I'm on the side and to the top. On the side, up to the top. This is where all your clay is. This is the hard part in pulling. And you can see my clay comes off kind of like chips. It's a little dry, but it can still be trimmed. You can see I've rounded out this edge here. The next step is to take the nose of Snoopy and push down. I don't know how to describe it. It's not in the middle, it's not on the far outside, it's just kind of right in the middle. I'm pushing down to cut a ledge here. This is called your foot. So I push down. I don't like this bump here, so I'm actually going to trim a little more off. There's my foot. That's what it's going to sit on the table with. Because my clay is a little bit dry, it's a little past leather hard, I'm going to use a ribbon tool. You can also use this sort of tool, and I'm just going to come in here and just kind of Carve a little bit deeper. Trimming really isn't too bad as long as you get your pot in center when you first start. There's the foot. And then the last step you can do with either this triangular tool or what we call the ribbon tools. So they're a little bit thicker. You use the back of the triangle and you remove the inside part. Now you have to be careful here. If you stop your pot and you push on this, if it's moving, or here, it's getting pretty thin. Sometimes I like to use these ribbon tools too. I like fancy foots. So I'm going to trim a little bit more of my foot off. I'm going to take a little bit more out here and do a little angle. Trimming really shapes your pot, gives it nice form to it. If you're starting out or if you're a potter who has a hard time making thin pots, you can kind of cheat. And you can trim off a lot of your extra clay so people think, man, they are good. Look at how thin and light these pots are. Well, not really. You trimmed them nicely. There's your trimmed foot. Now, if you're going to sgraffito, you could put an englobe or an underglaze on, let it dry, and then carve. If you're going to do a handle, now's the time to do the handle. Before, if you're just going to turn it in and glaze it when it's bisque, you have to sign your pot. Real potters always sign with pencil. Gil. And then you would put hour 1, hour 2, hour 13, so we know whose pot this is. A trimmed foot makes it float. It looks nice and clean on a table.